on the vocal minority.
Are you part of the silent majority? Or are you part of the vocal minority?
Well, let's go. Attention, please.
If America can be saved, and I don't know if it's too late, but it'll be through radio shows like this new kind.
This shit here feels like a whole entire world collapse.
The revolution will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised, will not be televised. The revolution will be no rerun, brothers.
It's the vocal minority.
The revolution will be live.
What's good? It's your boy MC. Welcome to another episode of the Vocal Minority Report. As always, you could have downloaded any podcast in the world, but you're here with us. We appreciate that. We've got a great show today. Our guest is a social media maven, actress, writer, comedian, and performance artist who's been featured in the New York Times Off Color series. She's been a commentator on Comedy Central's The Nightly Show with Larry Wilmore, The Huffington Post, and Jezebel, amongst others. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Kristina Wong to the show.
Thank you, MC.
Hey, no problem. Glad to have you. How's it going for you today?
Well, it's I don't know when you're airing this, but today's Thursday of the DNC, the fourth day.
Right.
I don't know if I'm just distracting myself or what, but I was listening to Martin O'Malley's speech, and I watched all the debates, and I was like, fuck, he's hot. And I asked Facebook, I'm like, I'm the only one with the hots for Martin O'Malley? Like, where'd this come from? Like, I didn't know white hot was my thing. And and there's actually BuzzFeed articles about like how hot he is and like shirtless photos that are floating around. And I just feel like it's so weird. I'm so into this, like this subculture of all these people on Twitter who are like, ooh, Martin O'Daddy.
Oh my gosh.
It's sort of like a relief because it's a lot watching I never knew politics could be so freaking emotional. Roll call from DNC when each state is acknowledging the tribal nations that exist. I'm like, oh, it's like, it's a complete opposite of a Miss America pageant. So that's sort of where I am. Yeah.
Well, no, I got you. Cause I mean, you get I don't have you on the whole Martin O'Malley thing, but
You're not in the dad bods, I guess.
Well, I'm into my own dad bod. I mean, so yeah. I certainly have one, so I support the dad bod. Off the top, I can't even remember what Martin O'Malley looks like, so I need not that I care. One more time, I need to Google it. But okay, well,
He's super hot. Let me tell you, it's like a Harrison Ford hot, and I didn't think that was my thing. I didn't thought like white men were yesterday in terms of like what unattractive, and I'm like, woo, old white men, yeah. So I'm basically having a life crisis or something if I'm hot for presidential candidate.
Right, no doubt. Yeah. That's because it's funny you bring that up. I'm glad you brought that up initially, not so we can get political, but because I wanted to ask you if you've made any traction with Jeremy Lin. That was my real question, and wanted to see what you thought his braid look. Yeah, because he's rocking the braids now. He's back in.
I know.
So I know you're kind of jonesing for a older white guy, but I was just curious if
Well, for folks who don't know, I have been doing what is becoming a lifelong project, but ever since he got on the scene, we had our 1 month of Linsanity. That was the gift to Asian America in 1 month, where we felt like, we can be somebody. We can be in the NBA. At least one of us. And and I have been just actively, publicly pursuing him. And the closest we've gotten is he's been in the same stadium. I paid for Clippers tickets. This is before the Clippers got kind of good. I guess it's just right when they were getting good, and he was with the Rockets. And so we're in the same stadium, and I held up pretty graphic signs describing what I want him to do to me, and somehow got into Staples Center with it.
Oh, wow.
And I had a Kickstarter campaign, to buy Lakers front row seats. So I was trying to raise $5,400.
How far did you get on that?
I was about $300 short.
Oh,
so I got nothing. Yeah.
Oh, man.
I mean, the whole point was sort of a critique of the pressure that is put, I maybe more on Asian women. I can't really speak to other people's experience. I know that I was put under an insane amount of pressure for my life to look a specific way, and I'm sort of running out of years where I can pop children out of this womb. If they were to come out of this womb, I can always find other babies that look like me, ways to do this.
Yes.
But
yeah. Hey, well, people do it all the time, right?
Yeah, all the time. People make babies in test tubes.
Right. I was talking about going to get them overseas, but yeah, get test tubes. Yeah, right. You
go overseas. Yeah, right. You can go get them in town.
Right.
There's all sorts of ways. But at
Craigslist.
This interview might get dark soon.
That's we talk
about black market baby buying.
That was the whole point of having you on to take it dark. So it's cool.
But the point is of that piece was I was trying to get close to meeting him and not gotten close. He has a pet name. I do know that he might know of me. He hasn't sent direct signals, but he often says thank you to God or him with a capital H or our Lord. Those are all nicknames for me. So he's sending signals to me that way.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I think he's because he's not balling as hard as he was that 1 month with the Knicks. I feel like this hair thing is him doing stock photography on the side for a hair catalog. So he's just sort of cycling through different haircuts.
I thought he was just trying to get he was trying to get his edge back. Since he's back in New York, he's trying to get his edge back. But okay, no, you're probably right.
Right.
That's funny.
Yeah, Brooklyn.
Right.
So I was so confused. I was like, I didn't know that Brooklyn had a basketball team. But I don't think half of us followed. I say us, Asian Americans. Half the people that started following basketball was only because he showed up.
Well, let's see. What is Yao Ming Chinese too, or is he?
He is.
Okay.
What makes Yao Ming? It's not that Yao Ming was super exciting, but what is exciting about Jeremy Lin is he is an Asian American from the Bay Area.
Okay.
And much felt like, oh, this is a narrative, a story that a lot of Asian Americans born in America identify with. It's not like this import.
Right. He's really one of you. Yeah. I mean, he's an American.
People born in China are one of us too. Yeah, but we can identify with some of his stories of him just constantly being passed up, and he wasn't bred in this Chinese basketball system, and it was just he wasn't already so super good and then came over. It was where did this come from? And it was sort of a success story that I think a lot of Asian Americans can identify with, because there are a lot of stereotypes about what we're good at and what we're not good at, and it happens in subtle and overt ways where I'm sometimes in rooms and doing mixed bill comedy shows, and I'll be there with a bunch of white guys, and none of them have heard of me, and none of them acknowledge me as in one of the other comedians. I think they think I'm a girlfriend or an intern, or maybe they'll talk to me if they want to hit on me,
Right.
But I'm often, I think there's certain visibility that we're used to in certain situations.
Yeah, and I want to get into that with you about being Chinese American or being Asian, or.
Yeah.
I guess if you can't be one without the other, but I guess I said that wrong. Of course you can. You can be Asian without being Chinese American.
But
yeah, you know what I mean, though.
I didn't start saying I was Asian American until college, because I didn't really understand it as a political identity.
Okay.
Right? How is it that me and a Korean person and an Indian person, sometimes Iranian, gets
right.
It's circled into what is Asian American. I'm how do we all have something? What how do we all have something in common? Because I definitely, growing up in San Francisco, was just I'm just Chinese, but I was always trying to assert to the world how American I was, because I feel like there was this sort of thing following me that I was supposed to be just seen studying and not heard, kind of a thing, and it wasn't until being in college classes and understanding that these little subtle things I was experiencing they were actually things that were experienced by other Asian Americans, and it wasn't a weird coincidence, and it wasn't something I should stand for either. So as I understand it, Asian American is a political identity, which sort of had to come together because there was no collective voice, and while it is not one universal experience, there are a lot of similar and shared experiences that Asian Americans have.
I feel like our experience as African Americans, I prefer the term black, but and minorities.
I do too. I just picked up on that. A friend was like, "Why are we?" I don't like that I feel like people are going. It's like the word fad. Like people seem to want to avoid using it, and it's been so. And she explained it very well, and I was like, "Great, love it."
Yeah.
Because it always felt awkward, to say African American
And you can tell people feel awkward saying it today. Like if you watch the news or listen, or when people are, because it's like they're processing in their brain trying to be politically correct, and they just want to say black, but they pause to say African American, and I mean, like because you're since we're already on the race stuff, let's go ahead and get into it. So
we're all over the place. I'm sorry. This is what interviews like me look like.
Hey, no, this is all good. I talked to Kevin Avery last week for like over 2 hours, and we went from R&B music to Matt Damon to we went down a million rabbit holes. So it's all good. I'm
awesome.
No, let's do this. Let's transition. You know what? Good. Let's talk about you though. Let's talk about you. What you're working on.
Sure. Well, I've been touring a show called the Wong Street Journal, and so my format works a little bit different than a stand-up because I do full-on theater shows, and it takes a long time to write, and there's a lot more tech than just me and a microphone. I envy that stand-ups can do that, but I think the way I think is much more visual and all-encompassing, and
right.
And so I that's where most of my training.
Yeah, I watched you walk around in a not walk around. You were performing, but I watched you as a vagina or wearing a vagina. So you're so
that's actually not part of the show at all. I think most people know me from the Jeremy Lin stuff and the dressing up like a giant vagina doing stand-up, but and they were surprised when they come to my shows and they were like, "Wow, that was about Uganda, white privilege, American privilege." The problem of NGOs overseas.
Okay.
Like, wow, that was you have this whole other side. I'm like, yeah, I actually do these amazing shows.
You're not just a vagina. Okay, I got you.
Yeah, I'm not just a vagina. So I'm touring this show, and that is in 2013. I went to Uganda. I was sort of having a eat, pray, love. Crappy privileged American moment where I just was like, I'm lost. What am I going to do? And, I was like, am I really doing this? Yeah, I guess I am. And I never had that experience where you, after college, go to Peace Corps and whatever. And I think I was sort of curious because I felt like everyone seems to find themselves in these settings. I did not manage to find myself.
Okay.
I'll preface with that. But I did make a rap album with local rappers.
Wow, all right.
And it was a very confusing experience in that, when a lot of my work, I talk about what it's like to be Asian American here and racism that I experience here and stereotypes I encounter and things like that. But I go to Uganda and I am a Mzungu, which is Swahili for white person.
Okay.
And I felt so white. I felt white guilt like I never knew I could feel it. I really I just didn't know how, and I just sort of like the systems that exist. It's not very clear like how to alleviate the conditions that I was seeing people live in a way that was helpful. Because I think the stereotype is, oh, Africa, send them your food and old clothes, but that is not a really productive way to help anybody.
Right.
It's a great short-term situation if there's like a hurricane or something like that, but if what ultimately needs to happen is not just giving handouts, but investing in long-term strategies to survive, and then investing in the self-determination of the people who are most oppressed. So, and that can be in the form of microloans, like helping form businesses, helping get education to people, helping develop an infrastructure where people have access to food all the time and things like that. And it's really tricky and confusing. It looks sometimes like another form of colonialism to go to other countries and see all these NGOs set up in these big fancy buildings, and and a lot of people who are from the West, Mzungus, who are there to do nonprofit work over there, but a lot of the money that should go to the programming and to directly serve people end up going to just keep the NGO going. So there's all sorts of issues. There's a lot of missionaries that there's. It's almost like we gave them when I say we as the West or Americans, we brought them the Bible and left with their land, or left, with stories and in ways it's like, I had heard some story, I wasn't there, but a pastor from America was telling me a story about how at a conference, an African pastor was like, stop bringing your missionaries. Like we have so much, we're all converted. You can stop it now, but it's in this weird way, it's sort of like that last, it feels here like that evangelical churches will have much more influence there than here. Because it's a very young population, it's a very vulnerable population.
Right.
So,
yeah, they don't know any better. Yeah.
Yeah, and when I think in a population that's been directly affected by war, it's like really, they just want someone to help, and usually the face of the person who helps is the white person, is the white savior. So there'd be many situations I'd just be walking down the street and kids would come and run and grab my hands and I had like one kid writing me love letters, and I was like, we just barely met, like and I was like, I don't want this. I don't want to be your white savior. This is so uncomfortable. But it's also sort of what I signed on for, right? Because there's no other, like, they know that they're not exactly a tourist destination. So why else do we come? I mean, you come because you have resources or access to resources. So anyway, so I ended up meeting these boys in the street at a food stand and followed them into a dark room, thinking they were the gay community because two of the men were holding hands. And I thought, oh, they're organized, because I'd read about political organizing.
Oh, okay.
Of the gay community. But it was just two rappers who hold hands, because that's how it is in Africa. Like, it's normal for men to hold hands.
Okay.
Like, it's completely homophobic.
So Weezy and Drake could hold hands over there, and okay. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So like all the codes are switched in my head, and I was like, oh wow, it's like two black men holding hands in the street, and they were like really, like super dapper dressed, and I was like, man, and it turns out it was this music studio, and the producer, whose name is Nerio, put beats on right away, and I just started to freestyle rap, which is, believe it or not, something I don't do a lot.
Do you want to give us a sample? You want to give us a few bars right now?
I can, yeah. Let me go. Okay. Breastfeeding and cleaning. She's a silent force of life. She ain't a slave to your property just because she's a wife. Holds it in when it matters. Empathizes and strives. She feels the pain of a village and leads it back to all right.
I need the air horn sounder. Oh no. Okay.
Thanks. I'm a little kind. I would have rehearsed. But yeah, so basically my show is telling the story about navigating white privilege and as an Asian American in Uganda. And I think I've been thinking about it a lot when I had left the Zimmerman verdict. The Zimmerman acquittal, I guess, happened.
Okay.
The awful man who murdered Trayvon Martin. And I was just like, I was pretty horrified, and I went from that to going to Uganda, and I saw a lot of, I think it really made me recognize sort of the anti-blackness that exists, and I feel like this is like a no shit duh to say to somebody who is black and lives this every day, but it was, but there are these sort of subtle codes that I think are communicated to the rest of the not black world about how to read either black people on this planet or black America, but that they are needing to be saved.
Right.
And I with Africa especially, but I live like 3 miles from Skid Row in downtown, which is the largest population of homeless people, and which is a largely black population, and very much it is Skid Row, just like Africa, is in a way a symbol for a lot of celebrities to go and do drop-offs and show how noble you are, and drop off food and clothes and take the photos at the shelter or take the photo among the kids at the camp.
You know, we call that on this show. We call it "God bless the compassionate white woman." So that's it's kind of all encompassing. It can include men too, but that's that. Yeah, they kind of outwardly just kind of doing too much, making a show, in air. Yeah, I got
so
you.
I think it was, and I guess in America, as someone who's activist minded and thinks progressively and talks about race I never really had to confront that because it was always easy to be like, yeah, the white savior. That's not me because I'm not white. And then I had to, when I came back and was under a lot of scrutiny on social media because I posted all of my photos, and a lot of them were of children, not because I was shoving a camera in their face, but a lot of kids asked me to take their picture so they could see what they look like in the camera. But it looks kind of awful, right? It looks like I look like the dumb white woman who goes to Africa and takes pictures of all these children for other white people to look at. Except I'm not white. But I think the question I was having, well, are Asian Americans the next in line for white privilege? Are we, because we definitely, our bodies are not in the same immediate danger as black or brown bodies. There's definitely a lot of racism that is happening. And I definitely am getting this weird backlash where people will go, well, China's on the rise, so you have no reason to complain. I'm like, oh my God, my grandparents immigrated from China, like running from communism. Like, I don't get the checks from that. But yeah, so I think that's what I'm looking at a lot in the Wong Street Journal is confronting, well, what does it mean to be, what is the relationship that Asian Americans have in that different kind of setting when we go to a country of color that is not our motherland country, and what is our obligation to the people there, and what is the best way to support other people there? Because Nerio, the producer of my rap album, he was doing it for free, and then he sort of sprung on me, okay, I want you to sponsor a music studio for me. I was like, oh shit. I knew it. I knew there was a fucking catch.
Always.
I knew,
hey, yeah,
I know there was no free lunch or free rap album.
Even black dudes in Uganda there's always a hustle, you know.
Yeah. Oh, there's a lot of similarities because, like, when I went into the studio for the first time, he started to play me a video on his computer, and the setup is very much like, it's not like, Def Jam. I've never been to Def Jam records, but I'm assuming there's like a much more sophisticated board. It was sort of like a home PC with a Mac hard drive and processor and some plexiglass and a very cheap microphone on the other side. But they were able to make these amazing songs with it. And so Nerio was, I was like, I can't buy you a studio, Nerio. I'm so sorry. And he said, if you build me a studio, I will call it Wong Records. So basically, was like, I could make you the Dr. Dre of Northern Uganda. Like that was sort of my. And of course, my ego was like, oh my God, like I can't.
You were trying to get to your bank account to see what you had in there.
Yeah, I had a moment where I was like, but I was coming home with like, I don't want to say broke, but like I'm an artist too. Like there's only so much, I can. From what I have,
in effect, you're not the white savior. He like you look like the white savior in Uganda, but you're really not the white savior, right?
I am not, but I definitely was struggling with well, what am I? Because I definitely represent something, and so this show sort of explores what I did after, and things became messy. Like the rappers were fighting amongst each other because, in my mind, I thought, okay, if I bring him Wong Records, he'll share it with all the rappers. But all these other rappers, and they still write me, and they're like, can you send me money? I want a studio too. And I'm like, what?
Oh my gosh.
And I'm like, wait, I'm not a Santa Claus. So it's very tricky, and it's very similar to what a lot of NGOs, non-governmental organization or charity, is the international sort of.
You know what? I'm sure our audience probably knows what that is, and I was like, man, I'm gonna have to look this up because I'm like, I don't know what NGO means. So thank you for.
I hope that your audience isn't like, what is this woman?
No,
she made a rap album.
No, you're a woman of many talents.
So that's show I'm touring, and I'm writing a new show called Attention Please, and I'm just really fascinated by this election, and how is it we got on a fucking planet where Donald Trump, who's never been in politics, might become the leader of the free world and is doing everything wrong and he's not even a good billionaire, but he's doing everything wrong, and it keeps getting him further and further along.
And how does Middle America, like, how are they relating to him? Like, I know how they are, how some of but the what I heard is something today. It said that for white men, for uncollege educated white men, I forget what the age range was, but like that's his demo, you know, like he's killing it. And obviously college education, whatever, but just, I mean, I think we all have a picture in our mind of that certain Trump supporter when they hear that. And so, but he seems so slick to me though, because he calculated, he started this with the whole birth certificate thing, you know, how many years ago that was. So
that sounds so crazy. Like, who was believing that? I mean,
people, do you know how many?
They're stupid people, though.
Right,
Stupid people,
right, and all of those stupid people have been so galvanized now, and they feel like even though this man is a billionaire, he's nothing like you, and hasn't been his whole life, but for some reason they're able to identify with him. So yeah, no, that just, it drives me crazy, man. Like it really it baffles me.
I'm been fascinated with reality television. I actually watched almost every season and episode of The Apprentice. It was like one of my favorite shows to watch.
Right.
And I've also, like, the other reality shows I follow. So these are all shows that are part of Attention Please, my new shows. Tila Tequila, the Vietnamese. I
remember her.
Asian Americans often, we don't count her, or at least my joke is we have a new racial category for her and Bobby Jindal and maybe even Stacey Dash and Rosa.
Right.
We don't count them.
Yes.
Yeah, and I often ask Black Twitter, do you want to do a trade for? Can we trade you Stacey Dash for Tila Tequila?
Oh my gosh! Yeah. So how does that shake up? Because I don't even know what. Because I just remember Tila Tequila. Like, I know exactly what she looked when I hear the name. I know exactly what she looks like. She's kind of skinny. Has a brown hair. Like, I know exactly what she looks like. And I remember her from
the aftermath of that show, because there's a whole. For me, I feel like,
was that a VH1 show or an MTV show?
It was MTV. It was like 2008. It had 2 seasons.
Okay.
And as what happens with most reality stars, I guess, who knows what happened, but she didn't pick up a show after that. So she had tools like Ustream and Twitter, and she was sort of conducting this crazy reality show of her own life outside television, right? So she became engaged to this billionaireess named Casey Johnson, who's the heiress of the Johnson & Johnson throne. And they announced their engagement. Then Casey Johnson died related to her diabetes. And there are rumors that Tila was like, don't take your medicine. You don't have to take your medicine. But also, I guess what was realized later is Casey Johnson had a really become estranged from her family, and was also very mentally ill, very depressed and sick. And so here in this situation, Tila sort of took advantage of it to sort of announce to the world, like, oh, this will get attention, like 2 hot women engaged, maybe they can get a show out of it. So that was awful. That wasn't supposed to happen. She wasn't supposed to die.
Okay.
And so TMZ comes over, and it's sort of like this Norma Desmond moment at the end of Sunset Boulevard, where Norma Desmond shoots somebody just so the press come and put their cameras on her, right? So it's like, so Tila is being very bizarre as the paparazzi are following her, and just it was almost like these crazy meth tweets on Twitter, and now she's like a complete Trump supporter, saying that she supports the Aryan Nation, posting photos of herself dressed like a Nazi. Like, she actually had her Twitter account deleted. But to me, it was like so fascinating. It was like such a desperate train wreck of constantly at all costs trying to keep people's attention. You
know what's so as we're talking, I go to her Twitter page, right? So her last post is, so many crybabies blaming the white man for their downfalls in life. Here's some truth for you to swallow. And then it's I don't know what the hell it is, but okay. So clearly,
it's so weird, right? Because she was never like the LGBT icon or sort of go-to symbol. It was like the worst presentation of bisexuality ever, to have all these alpha males and femme lesbian women move into this house. It was like, it was a dating show like The Bachelorette, except it was men and women vying for her love. And the idea that they kept asking, is she going to pick a man or is she going to pick a woman? But that's not what bisexuality is not about. It's not that you like one more than the other, or that I don't know. It was just such a very superficial reading, and they always eliminated one man and one woman on every episode.
Okay, all right, yeah, I watched some of that.
That's not how love works, and that's not necessarily
right. This is
stringentness.
That's just greed, right? Like that's just greed.
Those are TV producers, basically.
Right? Okay.
But it was fascinating to watch because she looked. It was hard to tell if she was uncomfortable. There were some moments where I was like, how did they get her to do this? Because it was practically pornography. Just watch those women like make out with all sorts of people all the time.
You know what? But I don't know if you ever seen that show on Lifetime called Unreal.
Yes, I just watched the latest episode. I love meta.
Right.
Are you watching the second season?
No, I'm catching up. I'm early in the first season, but I'm already like.
Do I need to spoil it with you? I would.
No, don't. Like we need to do. What we need to do is a follow-up show. When I get caught up, we'll get back on and we'll recap, or like we'll talk about it, because I like the show.
Interesting race things they're doing. There's some interesting race things they're doing in the second season, but I'm not quite. Yeah, I've read articles where people are like, I think that they think they're being critical, but it might be actually reenacting the same stereotypes they're trying to skewer, which I don't know. Maybe I'm too analytical or give TV too much credit.
Right. No, I got you. You probably aren't just consuming. You just explained that whole tequila. Like you clearly are
so fascinating.
digesting this.
I'm, in the profession I'm in, or all artists were constantly like, listen to my podcast,
right?
Come to my show.
Yes.
And here is somebody who took that, like, look at me, 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 to this whole other insane level. So I'm interested in like how that compares to Trump as somebody who's look at me. And then as another counterpart in this play is Rodney King, and looking at him as the original reality television star.
R.I.P.
The unintentional reality star, right? Like that he was caught in this horrific home video, being beaten by LAPD, and then he becomes this. Some people call him civil rights icon, or just becomes this key catalyst figure in the LA riots. So he ends up going on a reality show 20 years later called Celebrity Rehab on VH1. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah, with Dr. Drew. I've seen the show before. I don't know if I remember seeing him on there, but yeah,
so fascinating. It could be quite painful for people to watch, especially.
Well, I love intervention, and I've seen enough Celebrity Rehab episodes. So yeah,
doing it because there's like 6 or 7 people. Like China, I think, was the most recent. The rest.
Yeah, well, yeah,
the most recent person to die.
And the dude from Taxi, and the Jeff, whatever his name was,
Jeff Conaway.
He's dead, right?
Mindy McCready, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, Mindy McCready, right? Yeah, right.
6 people.
Yeah.
About 6 people are dead. Who've been on this show, and it already seems it was fascinating to watch as someone who's never gone to a rehab facility to watch other people go through therapy. I was just like, in weird ways, I was working on some of my issues watching them. But watching Rodney King was interesting because it was almost like we hadn't heard from him in 25 years. Most of popular culture, he'll always be that guy coming off his high, asking everybody to please get along, and then that was it. But so they sort of show, and he consciously went to do the show, and I read an interview because he wanted people to see this other side of him. He became this unintentional star, and it was very strange because he describes again to Dr. Drew in a way that is, I think, kind of exploitative, what he witnessed that night when he was being beat, and then the whole aftermath of his life. He describes he was battling drug addiction, alcoholism, and sort of a broken relationship with his family. And so it's pretty intense because it's like we're watching like American history,
right?
someone try to process their place in American history and watch entertainment.
And the thing about it is, someone who should not be famous, who should be anonymous, but so he's thrust into this in this unfortunate circumstance, and then I mean, he was high speeding. I mean, they love to tell you. I was watching that OJ documentary.
They'll tell you that, they will not let go of that.
Yeah, they love to bring that OJ documentary, the 30 for 30. I don't know if you have seen that, but it's great.
So.
It's great, by the way. But but anyway, so it starts off with the OJ scene, setting it up, saying the whole case and everything was in the background of the Rodney King, but they had some of the cops, and they they could not wait to say that. Yeah, well, he was high and speeding, but anyway, so yeah.
Then deal with that. Don't beat him up. Break his bones. So,
right, yes.
So yeah, I just found it really fascinating that like we're in therapy with Rodney King. This is so bizarre,
right?
And that this is how he will complete his narrative to the public.
Unfortunately,
we actually go through therapy with him and help him process out his trauma that stems from the notoriety from that moment.
Did he get help? Did he get help in the show?
He was actually a leader. He was very much like the most rational one. There's this really weird moment, and I loved watching it for these strange moments, but Steven Adler was the drummer for Guns N' Roses, and he was one of the patients, and he was actually kicked out of Guns N' Roses for doing too many drugs, which is insane. Like, how do you get kicked out of a
right? Axl said that's too much. Yeah, right. Yeah.
And so there's this moment, and because the first few days that they check everybody in, some of the people are so high. And are detoxing. And Steven Adler looks over to Rodney King and goes, and you can barely understand Steven Adler's speech because it's so slurry. He goes, "Can we all get along?" And it was just like this very strange moment of, because they all may know of each other,
right?
In this room, some of them don't recognize each other at all. But that he's sort of reflecting on Rodney, how most of us remember him as the guy who said, "Can we all get along?" But it's so strange that it's happening in a rehab facility,
being recorded, and broadcast to millions, right?
But it's also interesting that this camera, right, that's shooting him, like it was both this it was this blessing and curse, right? When it caught him the first time, a blessing in that, okay, well, maybe these cops can be brought to justice, but a curse in that this will now is the image of him that will follow him. Him being brutalized is what will follow him forever. That will be his legacy.
Right.
And here we see him in rehab later, and here's this camera following him around as he's processing this intense trauma, and it's playing between commercial breaks.
Right. For Vagisil and Viagra, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And it is also this like source of violence, right? This invasion of his life. So anyway, so it's a very, I sound super abstract maybe right now, but these are the things I'm interested in is this idea of attention and and when we want it and don't want it. And I, as someone who makes performances and makes spectacles, I almost feel like when I watch these reality shows or watch the election, I'm like, I think I'm out of work. Because Donald Trump is basically the greatest performance artist in the world.
Right, because, I'm sorry to cut you off, but I was thinking about that.
Go ahead.
I was thinking about that this morning, though, just the sheer theater of it all, because it doesn't matter. It's not even, and the ramp up has been so long. I was doing shows a year ago talking about, I don't want to talk about Trump, and then now we're 4 months or what, 3 months away, 4 months away. Right. Every reasonable person, every commentator, probably you yourself, I would assume, I don't know, we're saying, oh yeah, this is cute, but this ain't going to happen. And then now he is the nominee and he's still crazy as shit, but it's working. And so, yeah, no, it's definitely, it's, I don't know what to do with it. I try to stay away from talking about it just because I'm like, I'm out of words, man. Like, I
can't stop watching. I don't know. It's so fascinating because you can't write this stuff.
No, right? Yeah, it's the perfect theater.
Michelle Obama, like of all the people to rip off, this is.
I mean, she said, she says publicly, "Well, I admire Michelle Obama," but like you took.
But they keep putting down her husband, so
right?
I don't understand.
Yeah. You admire her, but you, it's just the the irony and the odd dichotomy between all of them is so weird. I mean, the pictures of Trump and Hillary and, the Trumps and the Clintons smiling and glad handing and, I mean,
the wedding?
Right.
Oh, God, I know.
Doing what rich people do, it's just like, well, it's a bunch of rich white people just kind of doing their thing, arguing over bullshit that doesn't really, well, it does affect us, but we don't really have any control in it. So it's just like any other, it's just further, propagating this white patriarchal, system that we live in. Now, the fact that Hillary is a female is wonderful, I guess, but, she, and I don't mean, and I'm not trying to be whatever. I'm just saying as far as, but if you're a part of the establishment though, and even she seems way more rigid and maybe rigid is not the right word, but she doesn't seem like Bill, or 92 Bill, 91 ramp up Bill, like she, so
the saxophone.
Right. Like she
Bill.
Yeah. She doesn't have that play. You know what I mean? And now I do hate when people clown her for being or insincere. Her personality really should not matter, as far, because clearly the woman is qualified. So I don't even know what the debate is, when it comes to them. But the overall point of the theater, though, I mean, it's Benghazi, it's the emails, it's the, there's always something, it's all the media. It's like, they're just putting on this extra big show for us, so I'm glad people like you, comment on the absurdity of it and remind us about, like there's some weird stuff out here,
Yeah, it's crazy. And, this DNC is really interesting and how emotional it is, but also just the power of speech. I was a high school speech champion, and I
of course you were.
Yeah, thank you. Also, because I'm Facebook friends with my old speech coach, and just it's funny to hear her feedback every day about how she thought people did. But I mean, I actually wasn't planning to vote for Hillary. I was going to vote for Jill Stein, and that's because I live in California.
Okay.
And we can afford that, and it's not that I even think that Jill is very qualified. I just would like to help build the presence of a third party, just build those numbers. And it is, a lot of people are like, yeah, that's insane, that's impractical, but it's like, I think to keep them in the conversation is about building their numbers. But, sometimes I look at Jill Stein's Twitter and I'm like, she's crazy too.
Right.
But, so I don't know, but I'm watching these speeches going, God, Hillary seems pretty awesome. But I don't know. It's all, it's very well tailored speeches. They know what they're doing.
Right. And I guess for you, it's kind of like the ultimate reality TV too, to bring it full circle.
It is so dramatic. It's so dramatic.
Yeah. And all the live tweeting every night. Yeah. It's crazy. And next week we're going to do a full DNC recap with, a professor who was there, who was on the floor.
Wow.
I haven't watched it as diligently. I watched the RNC way more than I watched the DNC. I wanted to see my man Cory Booker get up there because to me, he got overshadowed by Michelle. I think that's been brought up numerous times now. But
she was amazing. There's a tweet going around saying Michelle Obama is Beyonce's Beyonce, and I was
yeah, right.
About right.
Yeah,
that's about right.
Well, because
that's my new life coach, is just listening to Michelle Obama's speeches.
So here's what we should have you back on for election and Unreal talk.
And the Unreal recap.
Yeah,
when you get caught up.
Yeah,
we'll be done with season 2.
Yeah, we'll do that. But I wanted to get into. Okay, so we've talked on it some, and we've talked about the shows, but I want to get into your background a bit as it relates to being Chinese American, third generation. What? Let me say this again.
Third generation.
Yes, third generation Chinese American. And so what that means is what your great grandparents came here. I'm bad at genealogy and simple math, so I don't know what that.
That's okay. Well, it's tricky how it counts, but my one grandfather passed away before I was born. I've heard stories that he came over as young as 9 years old and with his father, but I can't confirm that. And then on my father's side, that grandfather came over when he was 19. So, he spent 60 plus years of his life in America. I count that as the first generation.
Okay.
As opposed to, some people say that's 0 or 0.5, but
right.
I just give it to him. And,
okay.
And I have had a great grandfather who immigrated after. So I don't know what that counts as. He came after my grandmother came. And then my parents were born in San Francisco and went to college in the Bay Area. So I'm not the first person in my family to go to college.
Gotcha.
I'm privileged in that my mother understood the college admissions process and was able to walk me through things like what a SAT score was or all these things. And maybe walked me through it too much because she had like these very like stringent goals on what I was supposed to meet and achieve. And now I'm a performance artist making rap albums.
Right. I would say in Uganda. Right. Yes. Right.
That's how that turned out. But I grew up in the city, and I don't have any working artists in my family. I'm definitely the only person who does what I do. My grandparents ran from circumstances surrounding communism and the Japanese-Chinese War in China, as far as I understand. And so my family they weren't flower children. They weren't like running around. As far as I understand, they were just working to survive and very secretive, like really trying to keep a low profile. One of my grandparents, there's something called paper sons, and there's certain immigration laws that barred how many people from a Chinese family could immigrate. So one sort of technique is people would have these fake papers saying, "Oh, this is actually my son," but it was really a cousin.
Oh, okay.
And this was just ways to work around the immigration system. So in ways, I might be descended from undocumented people. As it turns out, my grandfather's last name was not his real last name. I had no idea. And my mother had a different last name than her parents. And she won't go into it. And she probably was upset that I'm talking about it now.
Oh, wow.
But,
okay.
but I mean, the culture so much is very secretive. And so, it's sort of for other people of color who come from maybe very activist families and don't understand why don't Asian people get all involved. A lot of Asian people escape situations where they're used to this sort of silence and freaking out that the government is going to eject them. I mean, I'm even in a situation now. I've never been to China, so I have older relatives who've told me that when I go visit China, to not tell people that my great-grandparents worked in the government, because that there would still be resentment. Now, I don't know if that's true or not. I don't know if anyone cares, but that is the level of sort of secrecy that that a lot of, which I don't think is uncommon to my family, but I do feel like there's not a lot of romantic storytelling about the old country that might exist for other families of other backgrounds that come here. So I think I became really interested in the arts, one, because it was like everyone, it's the art of communicating and sharing and exploring stories. And it brought me a very diverse group of friends. And I didn't know that what I do for a living existed until I got to college. So I'm very fortunate that I got to college for that and to witness that existed. I just thought, I'm at the mercy of white people writing roles for me. And I've learned that that's not true. You can write your own show. You can perform it on the stage. And it'll be a lot of work. So that's sort of one version of my life story. I don't know how it feels.
Yeah, no, that's good though, because that gives a lot of setup, because it touches on so many things, because we talk about you talk about the secrecy, and so that gets into stereotypically the Asian girl is quiet, generally real smart, strict parents, they're doctors, they're dentists, slick ass entrepreneurs, and that, at least, stereotypically. So, but for you to, I don't know about rage against that, but to end up as this outspoken performance artist who, specifically, I guess the story doesn't seem that unique for an American or for minority, whatever, but for being Asian, do you, or being Chinese, do you feel like it's more unique, or is it
it is in the sense that I guess if I wanted to be a doctor, I could have gone down that road. I don't think it was my calling. I don't think I would have been really good at it. And
And not to say that all Asians are doctors or dentists,
not,
but
no.
right.
But or any kind of profession. That's
Right,
not what I'm
yes.
doing. I guess I could have done, and I sometimes have a lot of guilt around that, especially if things aren't doing well in my art life. Like I'm like, why did I go down this road? I had the resources to do something else. I mean, it would have been a lot of work. I didn't actually want that, but I felt that I could do more as an artist to sort of meet the dreams of my grandparents than just someone who made a lot of money in a job where I, made, in theory, like if I was a doctor, healed people and stuff. Like I feel that in this line of work, there is a different kind of healing that's happening. It's a different kind of comedy, especially, that's happening. It's a different kind of community that I'm building that's happening. But it is frightening. And it was really a frightening path to pursue because there weren't a ton of examples of people, of Asian women who were doing it. They were all like very pretty and in movies, and then maybe you stop seeing them after a while.
Right.
And there weren't that many of them, right? And so I often, I still have that anxiety of like, how much longer is this going to go? Because I'm literally building the bridge as I walk across it.
No, I like the way you say that because it leads to so many different things. Because I wanted to, because you talk about being able to, when you perform and relate. Like I know you touch on certain things, dealing like with depression and suicide and those kind of heavier topics in your performance. Yeah. And I wonder if the being able to have the release of performance and obviously, we haven't talked about, but I know last night you were at an event talking about social media marketing and social media for artists and whatnot. So do you think that the two have anything to do with one another as far as wanting to have that outlet to be able to express yourself and kind of what's going on and to offer this commentary? Does that think it lends itself to
social media and theater? Are you saying, or what are the two mediums? Sorry.
Well, social media, theater, anything that allows you to get your voice out. I mean, we can be specific to theater or to performing, but I don't know. And maybe you're telling me I'm wrong that one has nothing to do with the other. But
you're never wrong, MC. You're never wrong. No, I mean, I think people need outlets for sure, and I think that's what makes Facebook really fascinating. Is maybe because I have 5,000 Facebook friends. But I'm like, is someone's parent dying every day, or in a hospice, gotten cancer? Like, what has Facebook done? Has Facebook made everyone have cancer, or are we just seeing a lot of grief happen at once? And it's sometimes tremendous. Like I'll see a black and white photo of somebody and like 5 paragraphs, and I go, oh no, it's a eulogy. Oh, no. And I mean, I definitely do feel like it. People want to feel connected. People want empathy. People want to feel like someone's listening. And sometimes people don't want that at all. People want to hide. I'm definitely having conversations with my therapist where she's like, can you delete social media? Because it seems to be like the source of all this anxiety and grief. And I'm like, I can't. This is what I do. I can't hide from this.
So what do you think? Because for me personally, like, I've had a Twitter page since 2009, but I just really started actively tweeting for the show a few months ago. And then Facebook, well, I mean, I can't stand Facebook, but I'm trying to be more active there. So for you, like, what do you think that thing is where you can't leave social media? You know what I mean? Like, cause you're on Periscope, like you're,
I am on Periscope,
you're an active person. So do you have a constant need for releasing what's in your head, or is it just a matter of you want to engage, or do you ever spend time thinking about what feeds that need? Or not necessarily what feeds that need.
It does tie into this play, attention please, right?
Okay.
I definitely, I can't even quite say that I went into this field with the most noble of intentions. I think a lot of me just sort of enjoyed, like, oh my God, I get to be someone else right now, or I get to be more myself right now. And I get to, in a way, be free and looked at and appreciated. And it was something that I never got to experience day to day, just moving along the machine of life.
Okay.
And so that was really exciting. And I might be addicted to it because I can't stop checking Twitter, especially. So I tweet a lot during live events like the DNC. But yeah, I don't know. I do feel though people want to be heard and don't, or people. I guess there's some people who are really shy and are not on social media, and they're able to find meaningful relationships or things that give their lives meaning in the day to day. But I guess I'm not one of those people. My meaningful relationships come from watching shows. And I think a lot of that, and one thing I say a lot of my shows and my family is them coming to my shows is them having the most honest interaction with me. Like when I go and eat with my family, we don't lay it all out. They don't know, what's going on in my head. They have to sit with an audience and watch.
Okay.
Because in ways it's so, we just and a lot of this culture that I described that my grandparents ran from and things like that, there's a lot of secrets. There's a lot of, don't talk about stuff. A memory I always have is like whenever I shared something that might be painful for my mother to hear, I learned very on, just don't tell her. Even if you want her to help you, just don't tell her,
Right.
And it's painful, right? To be like, how do you not share when you need help from your family? Because it's a very opposite relationship that other people have. Like, so when I watch families on television and they're all sitting on a couch working it out, especially I grew up watching Full House. And there was always that part at the end where the music would play.
Yeah,
and Danny
right.
Tanner
Yes.
would work it out with his kids. And I was like, I can't even fathom that exists. It might not exist, but I always associated it with like white people.
Well, you and me both, and I would assume
right?
that, yeah, but yeah, I'm like that's what white people do, right? Like the Tanners, like yeah, I mean, like I wish my dad would come sit on my bed. I wish I was DJ and my dad would come sit on my bed and tell me, hey,
who's the boss? Like that guy was just a housekeeper. and moved his kid into Judith Light's house.
Right.
And even he got to like work out his shit.
He
did. I'm like, wow, white people love working their shit out with each other. How do I get in on that?
Like the perpetuation of them having it together on TV. Mm-hmm. I wonder if
they should run our country or they should.
Right. Cause that's what we talk about, when we talk about, like I talked about it with Kevin, I talk about it with a lot of people I have on, about especially when we talk about diversity in Hollywood specifically, but, about the normalization of things, right? So if there were more Asian people on television, then this whole mystery or mystique or or you all would be way more normalized, and obviously, I mean, you're American just like I am, but you know what I mean? Like, it's still one of them things
but like normal and like TV normal, I guess, or dominant culture normal or whatever I mean, if you only know of people from the 5 lines they have in a movie, then, like
right.
you to conclude, well, I will say the same of, how I experienced Black culture was through movies or news, local news, and
which is all negative and bad.
It's not nice, yeah.
Right. If what you see primarily, if we're not in your day to day and vice versa, because I want to get into the fetishization of Asian women and all that stuff too. Like if it's not normal to you, then you're just going to take whatever you see on the news at face value, and that can create such an ugly picture, or not ugly, but a misrepresentation of how we all really are, right?
Yeah.
Except for some white people who were always put in a glowing fashion, but so, you know what I mean?
Well, they get to be everybody, right? They get to,
right. Yes.
They get to be the bad guy, the good guy. Like if a white person fucks up, it doesn't destroy, like white people don't have to have their apology prepared.
Right.
And apologize on behalf of all white people, but that keeps happening to everybody else who is not white, that they have to apologize. Or even this Blue Lives Matter stuff. It's like you've got this one lone wolf in Dallas who shoots these police officers, and suddenly, like, Black Lives Matter activists get blamed.
Right. Yes.
For shooting it, and that's not what that movement is about. It's not about killing cops.
No.
It's so confusing. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And well, I'm glad you bring up Black Lives Matter, because that's a question I had for you as an Asian American. Like, what are your feelings on Black Lives Matter movement? Like, I assume you get the all-encompassing nature of it. You know, like
I do, yeah. And I've gone to we have I think they're into the third week right now of the camp. They're occupying City Hall, and so I've gone down there a couple times, and I'm a huge supporter of it. I feel like it's not just Black lives in America; it's Black lives everywhere have been devalued. Whether we see these tragedies that happen in European countries, and the reaction is so much different than, like in Iraq the week before the thing in France happened. It was like 200 people were dead in a bombing, and then there are things that are always happening all over the African continent that don't get any news, right? And so I feel like that is just about the value of Black life, and it's obviously not about anybody's else's life being less important. But I feel like if we get to a place where Black folks have liberation in the sense that they can move freely about the world, have the same rights as everybody else, that means that everybody else is in a much better position. Like the bottom of the totem pole right now, the people who've been consistently left behind by civil rights progress is Black folks. So as I feel like as an Asian American who has benefited from the progress of civil rights, is my obligation to support that movement, but also learn how that support looks like. Like I talked about being in Uganda, and I had to really struggle with okay, what's the best way for me to be here? It's a different kind of allyship. Like there's a lot of talk about how do you be a good white ally or a non-Black ally? And I had to really figure out how do I do that without being condescending or whatever. And I have a story. I'm still trying to figure out how to tell the story. But the first day I was at the occupation, I was I had seen these tweets, and they're like, we need sleeping bags and blankets. I got a sleeping bag and a pillow, and I said to my white friend Scott, I said, let's go down to Black Lives Matter, let's drop this off. And we couldn't find the occupation at first, and I thought, oh my God, I have the wrong day. And they were actually around the corner at City Hall, and it was about 20 people on the steps, and a lot of people had dropped off food. It's a very well supportive. At least it was. I haven't checked recently, but
Right.
It seems very well supported in terms of people dropping off supplies and food to support everyone camping and occupying. I don't know if camping makes it like something else, but occupying. And I was perusing the food. I got really excited because there's so much food, and I grabbed a bag of Cheetos, and a Black man said to me, "Who are you here supporting?" And it was very stern, and I had just walked in about 10 minutes, and I was like, I'm supporting Black Lives Matter. And I got nervous,
Right.
oh my God, I look like an infiltrator. Not nervous because of the blackness, but I felt like, oh great, I'm like the well-meaning white lady that has shown up, and now it's
the compassionate white woman,
their food.
Right.
But I will say, Black Lives Matter LA, very good food. I won't go into a lot of detail.
Make sure you put it on the Yelp page, right?
I've gone to Trump events as research, and the food is not as good there. Much better in BLM. But it was this moment where I was like, I sounded all freaked out, but I was like, because I was periscoping at the same time.
Right.
And I was like, I'm here supporting Black Lives Matter. And he just sort of looks at me, and I was like, is there an issue where I don't seem trustworthy? And he said, you weren't at our circle up a few minutes before, and we're just making sure we keep this camp safe. And I get that. I totally get that. But I had a moment where I realized, how do I best, carry myself here? Because this is not about me and my Periscope video, right? This is about how to center the people who are most impacted by this movement. But I don't always know what that looks like. So these aren't hilarious stories, but I think it's very real. I know this older white guy activist who was very discouraged when he went by. He was like, when I went by, they said all the white allies have to sit over there. And I thought we were all supposed to sit together. And I was just like, I kind of got annoyed by that. And he's like, this movement will continue, but it will have to continue without me. And I was just like, like a fragile white person whose feelings were hurt. I was like, I don't know what you experienced. I've not experienced it where they told white allies to sit somewhere else. But my guess is that they were probably doing some organizing in that moment where the black folks have to talk amongst themselves so that they don't have to translate or make white people feel good about being there. And when I did a theater project in Skid Row, working with mostly black folks, and I realized and there are people from outside that community. I realized very quickly just making everybody try to work together doesn't work, because all the shit from the outside world still finds its way into the circle working together. And sometimes people need to see each other and what they've worked on separately to kind of fully understand what's happening. So it's not about you being segregated as a white guy who is trying to support. It's about trying to get some work done as organizers and keep the intentions clear for who it affects. So that, I think everybody's probably exhausted listening to me talk about this on the other end. Who knows?
No, it's fascinating.
So
you're right.
But yeah, I think it's definitely, I know I'm very fortunate that it's not a weird thing. I have a lot of academic friends and academic friends and Asian and activist Asian American friends. So there's a lot of conversations that are circulating about, okay, how do we address the fact that when we were growing up, there was a lot of anti-blackness, that we didn't understand a lot about black folks, and we actually internalized a lot of those stereotypes. How do we go from that to now supporting this movement? And how do we talk to our families about it? And how do we talk to other people who don't understand, well, I know your life was hard as an Asian American, but this is why we actually have to focus the conversation around these people. So it's a long, confusing thing. Maybe Black Lives Matter, maybe the easiest way to explain it to people is saying Black Lives Matter also, as much as other people's lives. It's just that right now, law doesn't see it that way. It's just a really fucking long hashtag.
I'm glad to hear your perspective, because I know tons about being black, obviously. I know very little about being Chinese. Yeah. The struggle of being a minority is universal. There's levels to it, obviously, being black versus being Asian or whatever. But, we all, when we're all living in that same, world.
Oh, well, I noticed you used the word minority. And I had a question about that, because I used to use that, but it sounded so inherently diminutizing to refer to yourself as a minority. And I now use the word marginalized, which I don't know if that's academic and hoity-toity, but it refers to the active.
Yeah,
greater dominant culture pushing to the margins.
Right. Well, see, I'm not sure. Well, a couple things. I use the minority because the show's called The Vocal Minority Report, so I use the term way more than I probably would.
And that's almost what Larry Wilmore's show was going to be called. It was listed first as The Minority Report, so you decided to grab it podcast-wise. Well,
I heard him on with Marin, and this is before the show came out. And he said that the name of the show was going to be The Minority Report. And I was pissed because I was like, that's my fucking show. Because this was, I did know that because I heard it, because he talked about it on with Marin, 2 years ago, however long it's been. And then I guess they couldn't do it because of the movie or Fox or whatever. So they couldn't use that name. And so I was going to call this the meandering minority. I wanted it, or it was going to, I don't know what to call it, but so I only added report because there's another show called The Vocal Minority that talks about soccer out of Canada. So but I like that term minority, kind of because it makes white people uncomfortable a little bit. So I like doing that. And
that's it. They have no problem volunteering. Go as a minority woman.
Yeah, well,
why don't you cop to the fact that you are marginalized?
Right. but to me, because I use the term marginalized, but to me that has such a negative connotation. But I mean, it's accurate though.
To make it nice,
right? It's right. No, it's
you're a racist to me, but in a sweet way.
Right? No,
smile.
Right? Yeah. But it's accurate though. But I just haven't. I haven't embraced it yet. So when I use it though, because I get a lot of flack. Well, I get some flack for the show being called The Vocal Minority Report. We focus a lot on black issues, and my response to that is, but we're talking about everybody though, right? It's kind of the conversation we just had. It's not, it's if I don't care about you as an Asian American, then what am I doing, right? You know what I mean? It's about all of us. We're all trying to move up and get some notice, and so So anyway, so I guess I don't know if I'm really answering your question or if you even asked me a question, but no,
I caught you.
Yes.
I caught you in your title.
Right. Yeah. You
to be the vocal marginalized report. That's
You know what? Maybe there's a spinoff show like Reports in the Margin or the Marginal Report. Okay. All right. We'll have to. Well, I'm always looking for new stuff. So we'll have to. Maybe I can flush that out. I want to get into something I heard you say on it's a couple years old. I heard you talking about racism, and you were saying that we still think of racism in a very archaic form as slaves and lynchings.
Using the N-word.
Right. And so since it's my show, I'll say nigger, but yeah, using the,
ooh, can I? No.
Hey,
As your guest.
Of course.
Can you let me use that word?
Until this interview is over, you can use, well, are you going to use ER or A? Because because which one are you going to use?
I'm going to use a U-H.
Okay.
A. So it'll be.
Go ahead.
Okay, now we're gonna play. that joke might not have worked.
No, it was good.
It sound different.
It worked. No. But
so no one knows what that was.
No, they know. They because they wanted to see if you were going to use all of the syllables. They were waiting to hear you. They wanted to see what kind of courage you really had. How
about Nogger? Is that?
Well, that just sounds great.
Dangerous. This is getting really dangerous.
That just sounds racist. I don't know. See, that just sounds racist. I don't know. You just screwed it up. Nogger sounds.
Please.
Yeah, that sounds racist. I don't know why, but it sounds racist coming from you.
All right. Nagger. That's what I call my mother. A nagger.
Oh, okay. I was about to say that's weird that you call. Oh, okay, but nagging, literally a nagger. Gotcha. Okay. And you call your black friends? No, I'm just kidding. No. No. Your point, though, and you said that we still think of racism in a very archaic form as slaves and lynchings. It's not just that it's just the N-word, nigger, whatever.
Well, I think, I wrote a few essays a few years ago about yellow fever, which is a phenomenon of white men who only date Asian women, and how that is actually racism. It's not, and it's confusing because everyone thinks of racism as like, oh, that's awful, but it's like, oh, why aren't you flattered that all these gross white guys with a long history of dating other Asian women want to date you too? And it's because I'm being read as my race and not as who I am, right? I'm being read for my race first. And I would get a lot of backlash from guys who are like, well, that's not racist. I'm totally nice, and I dated a Puerto Rican woman. So one essay I had written in I think it was Exo Jane, that I wrote this. I'm trying to think, it was a different publication, but I was definitely writing about yellow fever for a long time. That's the phenomenon of white men who only date Asian women, and that's because that has something to do, I think, with the stereotypes that Asian women are soft and submissive, and I think it's a stereotype that dates back from wartime, from Vietnam War, maybe even before that, where the only encounters that American GIs were having with the Asian population were prostitutes that hung out there, and somehow this is carried into the stereotype that Asian women are these kind of beautiful, exotic, submissive women. Preconceived set of qualities that I have and expectations that they expect of me because of my face and my hair.
Right.
And so while it's not as like, okay, I date just Asian women now, and I also want to kill all Asian women, it's not that intensity. It's to me racism. It's literally thinking that because a woman is of this race, that these are the qualities that she comes with. And what would often happen is I'm a big old loudmouth, and men would just be like, no, I wanted the kind of Asian woman that I had in my head.
Right.
That didn't speak back. They would just move on, inevitably to another Asian woman. Yeah, there was a statistic that came out that showed in this one dating app that men of all races preferred over women of other races. Black women and Asian men had the lowest response rates. Or was it black men and black? It was probably black women. I'm
gonna venture to guess it was black women and Asian men, or Asian
men. Yeah. And had the lowest response rates to anybody. And where does that steer? Why are Asian men so unattractive? Did they give us all? We're going to give you all the hunters. I don't know. So
okay.
So yeah, I was invited to comment on this in 4 minutes, and as you can see from all the stuff I'm talking about now. It's a lot longer of an explanation. We can talk further and further about why this phenomenon exists, why it's not necessarily a positive thing, the inherent anti-blackness, and what was also wrong with that survey is it just made the world into 4 broad races. Like, what is Asian exactly? What is Latino exactly? That's encompassing a lot of specific, ethnicities. So, especially Asian, because that can be a lot of stuff. It excludes mixed race people and Native people. This
Right.
was a survey. And I was asked to comment on it because I've been doing all these yellow fever essays, and I was so like, I hate this shit. I don't want to like be like trying to explain race in a succinct way. I'm good at it. I don't think it's pretty difficult to explain race in a succinct way, I think, if you really want to get to the nuances of what's going on. And so I thought, well, what do I do as an artist? I always take the well, how is this a good thing, even though this is an annoying thing? And so the interview was me going, suck it, white ladies, and I'm spitting, and I'm blowing my nose, and I'm doing all the things are unattractive or considered unattractive for women in general to do. And I'm being like, if someone wants it statistically, come and get it. So it's a crazy 4-minute interview where I just sort of take over the interview and do that. And that's how I confronted that. And I got on a reality show out of it. I got my own reality show episode on Mixed TV.
Okay, so yeah, so it was effective. It's like Tila Tequila light. So yeah,
it's like a political Tila Tequila.
Right. Okay.
I mean, we want to talk about race and dating. That show with Tila Tequila, she had one Asian woman, a prospective Asian woman to date. That woman was eliminated in the first episode.
Oh my gosh.
So basically, and then of course they eliminate the black folks, just to prove she's not racist or whatever.
Right. Yeah. So you have to leave them for 3 episodes. Right.
And it's not something they did wrong. It's not because she doesn't like black people. That's never why they get eliminated. And but it was really interesting how much they have to consciously distance her from talking about her own race or identity. When they do the hometown episode, she does all these trashy things. She goes to Middle America and meets the parents of these prospective boyfriend and girlfriends, but they never meet her parents. Because can you imagine, like, the parents are race? She's just like this coquettish, sexually available Asian woman with no history, no family. So there's a lot of interesting things to break down about race in that show and how it plays in the Yellow Fever.
Okay.
Or when I tell people, that's kind of racist what you're doing. They're like, oh, no, it's not. And it always goes to innocent by association. Some of my black friends or I had a black audience member who loved that joke. And, and it always is like the black person has the official gavel of racist, not racist. So Kristina, you can't be offended for anybody. And you, because you have no personal ownership in the group that something shitty was said about, you can't do anything about it, And I definitely feel like Asian Americans definitely don't experience the same police violence, that our bodies are not targeted as much, but there's definitely a lot of issues that we experience. There's something called the model minority myth, which is this idea that, Asian Americans have it all together. They up their bootstraps, they didn't complain, and look how successful and well educated they are. And maybe statistically, sometimes that's reflected. What's not reflected is that we have a growing prison population. That, like the subject of my show, Wong Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, we have the second. We keep going from first to second. It's a little all over the place, but Asian American women have very high rates of depression and suicide in this country. That Asian Americans are still overlooked for the highest level executive positions, and just general shittiness from white people is something that we experience, and other people too, but especially white people. And
you being that interview specifically, but just generally for you, like your other life as being the representative of the Asian race, right? So, and I assume that probably.
I'll say.
Commentating on it,
I think because there's so few of us, there's so few Asian Americans that when an Asian American is asked to speak by a Asian American body or maybe media is there's a lot of pressure to do it right and to rep right. And so I was, so this is learned consolation prize when something fucked up happens to Asian people.
Right.
Is that I get a job. I get a phone call to comment on it. Like, that's my consolation prize. So Cameron Crowe, I guess, did a movie with casting Emma Stone, a very white actress, in the genetically impossible role of a character named Allison Ng, in a movie set in Hawaii called Aloha. And I actually don't really watch that many movies because it just depresses me too much to watch all these white people like slaying out these narratives that I don't get, and I never see myself reflected in it. So I just watch theater instead, right? Or watch comedy instead. Both other. And so I get a call to go on the night show, and I'm to comment on this, and it's a panel format. And so I flew overnight on a red eye from LA. Like, I literally had to get the flight that day. Flew into Jersey. It was a layover, so it was exhausted. I had just traveled from the Philippines and had only been home not even a day. And so,
did you record a mixtape out there?
No, I didn't.
Okay, all right, just checking.
Every trip after Uganda is so boring.
Okay, well, I wasn't sure if you went to foreign countries just to record albums. I didn't know. Okay, no studios in the Philippines.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. I've done the panel format before. It's hard because you get the topics beforehand, and the writers sort of bounce ideas about what you would say. And they did add a third topic about comic books, which I don't really follow. They added it later on the day, and they briefed me early that morning, and it may have showed up in an email, but I missed it. So, like, for the last 2 minutes, I was, like, just silent. But at the very beginning, the other comedian who is half Filipino, half white, his name's Joe Coy, he made a comment about Hawaiian identity. He said, "What's Hawaiian anyway?" I'm paraphrasing. You eat Spam, you live in Hawaii, you're Hawaiian. But what a lot of people don't realize is there is a native Hawaiian population,
right?
That very much has had their culture completely genocide, like product of genocide, and is basically a population that's dying out, right? And a lot of it has to do with U.S. imperialism in Hawaii. And I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, did he just say that? But it's going so fast. And I'm like, do I have time to call him out and explain, wait, whoa, what was that? And then get to my jokes that I had prepared. And so really, I got some good observations in there. One was that this term that is often used in casting called colorblind casting, this idea that we're not going to look specifically for a person of a specific race to fill this role. But I feel like the term colorblind in casting is just code for everyone gets a chance to be white.
Right.
That we all get a chance to have a full narrative. Like, that's really what you're getting at. And other jokes about, like, I'd love Emma Stone to play me in my bio one day. And things like that. But, like, I was railroaded because it was just like there's so much energy, and the other comedians really, like, they know what this is. This is where you show a national audience what your jokes look like, and it moves super fast, and it's this thing where you have to look really chill, but in your head you're frantically going, oh my God, am I getting all the points across? Am I making my people proud? Am I repping everyone? Because I won't. That was last year in June. I don't get those opportunities very often. I do a lot of podcast interviews like this, but as far as national audiences, I unfortunately don't get calls. I kind of scare a lot of people away from politics.
Okay, that's what I was going to ask you. Why do you think that is? But okay, because you're because they don't know what they don't know what you might say, or
I'm not insanely famous in the first place, and but I also think the people behind the shows, like, it also says something that I get called usually to comment on an Asian thing, and not just like present my work as an artist. I would love for that to change, and it's not too indifferent than what other Asian American comedians I know deal with. They're brought in to be the Asian perspective,
right?
And not just a perspective.
You can't just be American or just be female or just you've got to represent that Asian perspective, right?
So it's clear I'm repping as someone who's an actor, who has much at stake. It's clear that that's why they didn't have a panel of 3 white guys talking about Emma Stone and Aloha, right? So that was It went really fast, and then they were like, and cut. And I was like, what? And I'm like still holding this armory of jokes.
Yeah,
like,
you know,
like I look so calm at the table, but really in my head, I'm going through all the jokes. I'm following what's at the table, and I go, I don't want to go back a joke.
Right.
You know, because it's just fast, 6 minutes.
You know, and that's the like one of the only criticisms I have of that show, and I'm a big fan. I had on Kevin Bartini, the warm up comic. I'm trying to get others, so I'm not coming for the show, but Larry's got to do his setup. He's got to do his monologue. It's great, but when they throw in the skits, it takes time away from the panel, and the panel's so short, like. And especially if someone's a dominant personality like Joe Coy, or if they have on like you don't get to see the because usually it's the person on the left side to Larry's left who's usually like the.
I was on Larry's left.
Okay, so well, you should have got more shine. Than I was going to say the person on Larry's left usually gets. Well, I'm sorry, on Larry's actual left, not the TV left, but the actual left. What side were you on?
Oh, the actual left. Yeah. That person, that was Joe. Yeah.
Right. So the person on his actual left usually gets more time.
Because they're there alone. They're not there sitting with somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, I was just scrambling, but I also didn't. I had all these other material for all these other things that never came up. It's a tricky format, and a lot of it, I get mad at myself because I've been taught to be nice and to share. As rude as I am, my work, it's a thing where I'm still too polite in those settings, and I just have to like go in with an axe and be like, all right, it's a joke,
Right.
Here's my observation. You know what? And Coy knows that format. He knows how to take that format over, and.
Well, I mean,
he's a nice guy. I wish he gave us a little more space, but that's what he's supposed to be doing,
right?
Himself.
Because you're an Asian woman, so you're quiet and demure anyway. So you probably didn't have that much to say on the topic.
The thing is, I was so angry at myself. I was like, it didn't look as bad as I remembered when I watched it. But when I was in the hotel room watching it after, and I was like going talk, because in my head was fucking racing. But when you watch it, it's actually kind of cool and calm and moves along.
Right.
But it is like, it's bonkers because it's like this. It's really this quiet, no holds barred game of say it first. And I compare it to it like an orgy, like a first orgy.
Okay.
I don't know if you've ever done one.
No, not yet.
Like,
I haven't found the right Asian women to be in my orgy, so I'm kind of screwed. But yeah. Sorry, that's probably a bad joke. My bad, but go ahead.
No, like I'm like grabbing for like scrap of hair.
Okay, you're just trying to find your place, right? Okay.
Get into this thing because it's such an I got thrown to. I don't want to make excuses for myself. I don't want people. It's not the shittiest thing on earth. To me, it was overwhelming, but it was not the shittiest thing on earth. But I do remember the woman pulling me aside and going, "You're our most nervous guest," and I was like, "I am." Then I was feeling like I was trying to prove that I wasn't nervous, and I was like, "No, I'm chill. And like trying to, but it was like it's really an interesting place, and there's this moment where Larry comes downstairs. And it's almost like the Pope is coming because everyone's on their heads going, Larry's down in two, Larry's down in two, Larry's down in two. And you can see everyone's like assembling, like the stand at attention for him to come down. So he comes down the stairs, and I'm like running around the dressing room, like going, well, how do I look? Do I stand here? Do I sit? What do I do? And I stand in my doorway of my dressing room with the green room with like my hand on my hip, and I'm like trying to give a smile. And then he just comes down the stairs and he just goes into the makeup room. It wasn't a big deal,
right?
But for whatever reason, when he comes down, everyone has to like look alive and look attention. So it's the really interesting thing. It's really cool. It's cool as fuck. And he did whisper in my ear, "We should have you back." And then
good.
The whole night, I kept asking people, "Did he mean that?"
You're right. Yes. Well. Are you still waiting? I watch the show all the time, but I usually just binge watch. Like
I watch it too.
So have you haven't been back though in a year?
I have not been back. I need the white people fuck over Asian people.
Right? Yeah. We need something weird to happen at a convention or some shit. Yeah, we get you back on. Oh, they get you back on. Okay.
But that's the pressure I think a lot of Asian Americans are under, and I see it mostly because of the circles I run in, where people dissect the next day, like, what did you think of this episode of such and such with an Asian American helming the storyline? Was it accurate? And if someone is quoted, like, oh, they don't do this and that, and I feel that pressure as someone who is now interviewing and commenting on it. Like, have I covered all the bases? I get criticism for that Fusion interview. I have, for the most part, people really like it, but then I have people who are like, this clip is so fucked up, and it erases Native people, it erases, it doesn't acknowledge, like, it's people like, you're going and touting that you're so desirable as an Asian woman, but what you've completely ignored is that Black people or Black women are the least desirable in dating, and why don't you address that? And I'm like, because this is exactly why I approached it the way I did, because there was just not enough time to do it right. And I actually could not see the graphics on the screen when I was being interviewed. I was talking into a box with a camera.
Right.
So it wasn't until after that I got to see just how stark the graphics were.
Okay.
And I would have been able to kind of call more on that. But I was also just like, knew it destroying news interviews.
Right.
And had my head on that. So it's like, but the thing is, I couldn't do it all. Like, come to my solo show and I'll show you how I explore all these things, and anti-Blackness inside Asian American communities and and all these other things that I can't figure out how to do in a 4-minute interview.
Okay. I got you. Well, I guess that's a good way to, you know what? I was going to say that's a good way to wrap it up, come to your show, but you had one other thing that you said, and I heard you say that the fight to address, reverse, or change your oppression is a long fight. And if you fight it constantly with anger, you're letting the man get you twice, right? And so if you could just expound on that a little bit, your attitude, because I think your attitude regarding racism and oppression and marginalization is refreshing, maybe because I don't talk to enough Asian Americans. But
I'm also not in the position where I am watching, but I am not watching, like, my blood family members be shot by police officers every other day, or be gunned down in a church or in the street, or succumb to poverty in the same way that the Black community is. So I want to acknowledge that this perspective, I'm able to have some distance from anger, because while I witness angry things week after week with the rest of the world, it's not impacting me as directly, and so I can afford that. So I've been thinking of, I wrote this statement around humor a few years ago, which lately I don't know where I'm at with it. But what I had said a few years ago was, I felt like that it's very easy to be so angry at when someone says something fucked up to you, or some oppressive thing that happens, and rather than live both as the victim of that oppression and be angry at that person, where you're trapped by your own anger and consumed, but not like a letter writing campaign, to figure out how to get inside that issue. And that's where the job is as the artist, to figure out what's the third option. Because the two options for the most part seem to be don't do anything or rage up and push up against it. But what is that third option? And that's what I feel like comedians and artists are always trying to figure out. What's that subversive way to go, okay, I'm not going to like go, what weird point of view can I adopt that might find the joke in here? And so that is sort of a point of view that had run a lot of my shows. Now recently I've been like watching, this has been a really hard summer, and I can't even imagine how you're experiencing it. Maybe this is nothing new, but I think for those of us who are not Black, and before the advent of Facebook Live and cell phone cameras,
right,
it is really horrifying to witness it so close up, so unfiltered, so unedited, and I'm happy to see a lot of white friends who I never thought would step up for Black lives, and I find myself understanding riots. I don't condone them, but I understand that rage, in that sometimes there's no time to process, and this is what a lot of late night hosts have been saying, who work around political issues. Jon Stewart has said it. I think even Trevor Noah had said it. I'm guessing Larry Wilmore probably said it.
Right.
It's like there's no time to process the intensity of violence that is being directed at Black people in this country. And so there's no time to be like, okay, what's the funny way we're going to address this? Like, it's just so horrifying that you can't even, figure it out. So I don't want to dismiss anger as an unnecessary tool, but I do feel like finding humor somehow is a way of self-preservation and is what will keep us sane so that we can have a revolution, so we can resist and create a new community that's not rooted in bitterness. But again, I do acknowledge that I experience things differently than the people who experience it the worst.
So with that being said, certainly appreciate you coming on the show and all your time.
We talked about a lot.
Right. So
I'm glad you did your research.
Well, yeah, and I feel like I could have done more, but yeah, because you are so varied. So hopefully we can have you back on and
I hope so.
pick back up on some other stuff. So for sure, yes.
Especially when you get through the second season.
Yeah. Well,
I really want to talk about that one with you, and you'll know why once you start watching it.
Okay, well, cool. Well, then that'll give me my motivation to push through. It's a good show, but to push through it, and yeah, definitely want to link it back up with you because, like I said, your perspective is. I just like talking to you. So obviously, after all this time,
so you're great to talk to too.
Cool. So I guess we can go ahead and wrap this. If you want to tell folks how they get a hold of you, find you. We are talking about how active you are on social media and whatnot. So how can people find you and keep in touch with your projects and go see the shows and whatnot?
My name starts with a K, like the KKK, except only 1/3 of that. So it's Kristina Wong. Wong is WONG.com. And then I didn't get to it first on Twitter, but it's Ms. MS Kristina Wong on Twitter and Instagram, and I love Kristina Wong on Facebook.
The political correspondent got you, right? Like, there's because I saw it was a month. I was like, wait a minute, this is not my Kristina Wong. Who is this imposter? Okay.
Apparently, though, she lives in there are moments where she has to go, no, I'm not the performance artist. Right. So my job is to humiliate our name so that all the Kristina Wong go, no, I'm sorry, no. Like I read this article. This is an aside, but there's a guy named Eric Frederick Trump, and he wrote this note which is Eric Trump's full name,
right.
Donald Trump's son, and what it's like to be Eric Trump's doppelganger.
Oh, wow.
And to receive all his weird emails, but not live a thing like him.
Right, yes. No, I could only imagine. Well, you did the Kristina Wong name and brand very well on this show. I'm sure the audience will enjoy it.
Thank you.
And like I said, I can't wait to talk to you again, so I appreciate it, and I will let you go. Hey, I hope you guys liked that episode with comedian, performance artist Kristina Wong. Really enjoyed chatting with her. Really great perspective and insight. Probably way more than I've ever gotten on the Asian perspective, specifically Chinese. But her perspective as a woman, as a social commentator, was really refreshing in my opinion. I hope you guys enjoyed it. As always, please use the hashtag The Vocal Minority if you want to reach us on social media and have a conversation about the show. Follow us on Twitter at Vocal Report. Follow us on Facebook. Please like the page at The Vocal Minority Report. Go to iTunes, leave a rating, a review, tell a friend. Make sure you check us out. As usual, we appreciate it. We'll talk to you next episode. Peace.